I would say working on sound, being able to just play a melody with no embellishments and be really expressive with that.
Hi there, welcome to today's vlog. There's something about getting, if you have the opportunity, I appreciate I don't have the opportunity most days. If you've got the opportunity, the first thing you do in the day, after you breakfast, sort yourself out, get the saxophone out of its case, get some air through it. Just play some scales, play some long tones. There's plenty of stuff in my books I've spoken about before. But just get the day started by getting some practice done. For me, it just ticks the day out. It's a bit like, getting some exercise in, going on a cycle ride, doing something on the rowing machine, go for a walk or a run if that's what you do. My knees won't let me do that anymore. But just getting out there, starting the day focused makes such a difference. I have a thing over there, I'll maybe show you later. Speed is a poor substitute for accuracy. By slowing it down, I was then able to play that just a few minutes later, as you heard. So always slow it down. Pleased to welcome Simon Herberholz, who is joining us from Glasgow. You are in Glasgow this morning, this afternoon now.
Yeah.
This is called Coffee with Dan. I've got tea because it's after 12 o'clock when I'm doing the interview. Do you drink coffee at all, Simon? Or
Yeah, I've got my coffee here.
Coffee. How do you take your coffee, Simon?
With milk. Just a little milk.
But what's your order in a coffee shop? Is it are you a latte guy?
I get a cappuccino normally.
Cappuccino.
Yeah.
Well, you're not supposed to have one of those after lunch if you're in Italy. Just a word of warning.
Yeah, no, I do know that. Yeah.
Can you tell us about your musical background? How did you get started on playing the saxophone? What instruments did you play first, if it wasn't the saxophone?
Yeah, so I started. I can't remember what age, but I was quite young. I started on piano, classical piano. That's when we were living in Newcastle, and then at some point my parents moved down south to near Cambridge, and I kind of switched teacher. And stopped enjoying the piano. But my parents were like, you need to play an instrument. So I settled on the saxophone, which I was learning for a bit, and got introduced to jazz, which I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed improvising and having more freedom. And yeah, I must have been about 15, 16. And I remember I ran into these two people in a music shop. It was an alto player and his dad. and he invited me to join the Saffron Center for Young Musicians because they had a jazz band on a Saturday, which you were running.
Yeah.
And yeah, from there, that kind of coincided with me really listening to a lot of jazz and just falling in love with it. And yeah, from there, I ended up moving up here to Glasgow to study.
Was it 2019 you moved up to Glasgow?
Yeah, September 2019.
You would have been hit by COVID then in terms of studying then. How was that sort of that period of time, sort of studying music during COVID?
Well, yeah, so September till March of my first year, everything was normal. So it was good to kind of experience Glasgow without the lockdown and meet people that way. But then when lockdown hit, yeah, everything changed completely. There were no gigs for like 2 years. So yeah, that was tough.
Was it studying on Zoom? Was it, how did that change? Because you're, well, at least when you were my student anyway, you were quite conscientious about how you studied. So I wouldn't imagine that you would have got on with practicing, I would presume. But how was it different in terms of, what you missed out on playing with others, etc.?
Yeah, so a lot of the classes were on Zoom. There were a few of the classes that required us to play together. We could still go into the building, but we were all in the practice room, social distance. They had like screens up for the saxophone. But yeah, and just I guess not having gigs and jams, because that's such a big way that you learn. That really changed things.
Yeah, I think for a time, am I right? You switched over to alto for a little time, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was during the second lockdown, and my kind of musical motivation was at a low. And so I just switched to alto, and that gave me kind of a new burst of inspiration. And for a few months, I was like, I'm going to become an alto player, but and I switched back.
Kind of talked you out of that one. Who were the players as a teenager you were listening to, or even outside of saxophone? I mean, which are the, first of all, what are your saxophone influences, or who were your saxophonist influences in those formative years? Who were you listening to? I
would say it would be Sonny Rollins, Charlie Parker, and John Coltrane. Those three.
The Holy Trinity, if we can count, really.
And then a bit later, I got really into Warren Marsh for like 1 or 2 years. I was really into him. But yeah, I'd say Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker. They just
outside of jazz. What other influences? What other sort of genres of music do you listen to or do you study?
So when I really got into jazz at 15, 16, for a while I had my jazz snob phase where I would only be listening to jazz and nothing else. But at this point, I really like hip hop. I like listening to it, and I play with some different rappers here in Glasgow. I've gotten really into Indian classical music. And I think that's
influence, or just kind of life. Coltrane studied that an awful lot as well. Do you?
Yeah, and I think maybe it kind of came through that. Because Coltrane's music and the Indian classical music, they share some qualities. Yeah, so my main teacher that I had through all 4 years here in Glasgow was Tommy Smith, and he's the head of the jazz course. Amazing musician, saxophone player. Yeah, so I really learned a lot from him.
What would you say, like the 3 top things Tommy sort of taught you, or that you learned from him?
I would say working on sound, being able to just play a melody with no embellishments and be really expressive with that, because that often can be harder than playing loads of notes. He'd always record me in the lessons, and we'd listen back, which can be quite painful, especially in the first 2 years, just hearing yourself back. But it's really helpful for just getting more aware.
Is that something you still do yourself in your own practice? You still record yourself?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. What, playing ballads, playing slow melodies, or everything?
Yeah, a bit of everything. Just hearing how I sound. I think there can be definitely a thing of doing it too much, but I do think it's helpful to be aware of how you sound.
Speaking of sound, what's your current setup on your sax? What are you playing on at the moment?
So I'm on a Mark 6 from 1965, which I got from this shop in Germany that has loads of old Selmers. And my mouthpiece, actually, my teacher Tommy, he sold to me. So it's a Bob Mintzer Bot Boy.
Okay.
Star. And he also sold me this ligature from Copenhagen.
It's good at selling on gear. so you can buy more gear yourself. When did you pick up that mouthpiece? How long have you been playing on that setup?
That was a few years back. maybe 2 years back. I don't know. My flatmates used to joke with me because during lockdown I would be ordering mouthpieces. I was kind of going through that search, and they'd be like, "Simon, every week you're ordering a new mouthpiece." So at this point, I'm kind of settled on this mouthpiece, and I feel like as a saxophone player, there's always things you're not quite happy with, but I think for now, this is what I want to stick with.
So speaking about sound, you've got is it an EP or an album that you're putting together?
I'm calling it an EP, yeah.
Yeah. So when did you record that?
So that was recorded last December in Castle Sound Studios, which is near Edinburgh. And yeah, we drove through early in the morning. It was all dark when we left. And yeah, recorded for one day. There's four tunes altogether. And
are they original tunes or?
Yeah, they're all original tunes. Yeah, they're all.
Concept behind it? What was there any kind of particular idea that you had when you're trying to present?
I don't know. I feel like the four tunes there's kind of a narrative. They tell a story together. Like they work as one thing together.
And I noticed that you released one already called Forest. Is that right? Or is that
yeah?
EP?
Yeah, that's kind of the lead single.
So tell us about Forest. What was the sort of compositional idea?
Yeah, so I wrote it on piano. The first idea that came to me is the bit from the very start of the piece, just this little chord. It was a B flat, F sharp, just that repeated, and I was playing that, and it was kind of giving me this image of a dark forest with the stars overhead. And from that, I started writing these other little sections with these little rhythmic figures.
How do you think your sound's evolved? You know, in say the last eight years, you know, or even just since you moved up to Glasgow, even just the last 5 years. What kind of, you know, if I may be interjected now, that I think I've still got a recording of you and I playing that blues in
okay
2019. How do you feel your sound sort of? What would you say? How would you describe the sort of evolution of your sound in that time?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all the elements have just improved over time. I mean, I'm always trying to get better. Like a really big thing has been my ear. When I came to Glasgow, I didn't have the greatest ear, so that was something I really worked on.
Yeah.
And now when I listen to music, I can hear melodies and I can hear that's the major third, that's this, that's that.
How do you approach those sort of different genres of music that you're playing? Do you keep the same approach? Are you doing something different when you're playing with these different groups?
I'd say that my approach definitely changes. There's a different language you're using when you're playing jazz compared to when you're playing with a hip hop artist. That hip hop artist doesn't want you to play bebop licks behind them, you know. But I feel like because these are all styles of music I listen to, I know what fits and what's going to fit the situation. And at the end of the day, it's still expressing emotions through music, just through a different lens, I guess. I mean, within my practice, I still do long tones and scales and all these basics just to stay connected to the instrument. But I've found increasingly it's become more important for me to kind of do things outside of music, because if I'm just music all the time, I just burn out. So actually doing things like going up a mountain or something for a day and then coming back really helps me stay fresh.
I asked a couple of quick fire questions. We did the coffee at the start. One of the questions I ask all my guests is, if you have 10, 15 minutes a day to practice and that's it, what are you working on? What do you go to first?
I would say either long tones and patterns or playing through a transcription.
Yeah.
There's loads of transcriptions I've done, like Lester Young, Charlie Parker. They're still in my head and in my fingers. And just playing them, if I've only got 15 minutes, I'll do that, and that will kind of bring me back online.
Yeah. Are you on socials anywhere for people to follow you if they want to keep track of your career? Because I think they should.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, simon.herbaholz. I'm on Facebook, Simon Herbaholz. I'm on YouTube. And yeah, the EP is called All Possible Futures, and it's coming out this Wednesday.
Lovely. Where can people see you this summer? Where are you playing this summer?
I'm playing at Edinburgh Jazz Festival at the Jazz Bar on the 17th of July.
Yeah.
And I'm currently finalizing a Glasgow show as well for July.
Lovely. And you'll have a website up sooner rather than later so people can find all the dates in there, but you'll put them on Insta anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll get on that.
Good to see you, Simon. Take care of yourself. Thanks for seeing.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. All right.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Well, it was great to get back to a coffee with Dan. I hope you enjoyed that. Simon's starting out in his career. He's a very exciting young saxophone player, so I do hope you'll check out his music. I'll put his socials in the description below. Please do support him in any way you can, and if you're in Scotland, go and hear him play. He is a fantastic young lad, and I'm really looking forward to hearing and seeing how his career progresses. Tomorrow, I hope to have another vlog. What I'm going to tell you about is another saxophone case, which has just arrived. So I'm going to film the unboxing, but I'm going to do the review tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribing. Do give us a like. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon.